And so in 1917, De la Chiesa called him and told him that he personally wants to consecrate him as bishop and sent him to Bavaria as nuncio.
I see.
Because there was an important mission ahead of him. Benedict XV had taken over as Pope, and he was a great diplomat and a very, very warm-hearted man, and he was suffering under World War I, which, from a human point of view, for the soldiers at least, was probably worse than World War II because of all the gas attacks, because of the unlimited warfare on both sides. In World War II, even in the worst of circumstances, both armies, both sides never went back to those awful weapons which were used in World War I. So the Pope had a plan for peace, and he sent Pacelli to Bavaria, to be nuncio in Bavaria, with the idea that once he's in Bavaria, he can talk to the German emperor. And within weeks, he saw the emperor, and we know from this conversation that the emperor was highly impressed with him, and wrote in his biography, the assistant of Pacelli was useless, but Pacelli is clearly a man with a future. And the Lutherans, which in those days were not very happy with the Catholics, were also impressed. One Lutheran paper wrote after he has been there for a few months, this clearly is the most able diplomat the Vatican has to offer. He's brilliant. Yes. So he created a rather impressive image of himself and of his work. But soon the war was over, and Germany ended in a revolution. The empress and the emperor, the kings and the counts, all of the aristocracy was turned out after over 1,000 years. Germany was without leadership, without moral leadership. Pacelli was in Munich, and the Spartacus, the left-wing group, roamed through the roads, and at one point there was great noise in the novitiate, in the official house of the nuncio, and they stormed in. They broke through the door and came with weapons and asked him to stand up because he's going to be shot. But Matre Pasqualina, his housekeeper, was there, and she went in a full robe and said, "First you shoot me." and that somehow made them laugh. They withdrew. But that secured her a job in his household for the rest of his life. They were together for 40 years.
Why was he made nuncio of Bavaria as opposed to Germany?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You see, Germany was unified in 1870, and the head of Germany was the Prussian king, who was always the Protestant weight as opposed to the Catholic emperor in Austria. But the Austrians have been kicked out of Germany, so now you had a Protestant dominated Germany, and as soon as that had taken place, a so-called cultural war was initiated, in which there was a merciless fight against the Catholic Church, against people who were preaching, against professors, against bishops. It lasted for several years. It wasn't helped when Pope Pius IX wrote, in order to help his poor church in Germany, wrote to the emperor, you know, that even he, the Protestant emperor, has to listen to the Pope, because all Christians have to listen to the Pope. The emperor said, I don't listen to anybody except Christ. But there was very bad. There were very bad relationships between the Protestant and Catholic group, and between the emperor and his Catholic subordinates, and yet the war brought it together. Okay, the war changed it because they all became soldiers.
And how did he try to stop the war, World War I?
The Pope had the idea of asking Germany to withdraw from Belgium and to be willing to withdraw from Alsace-Lorraine.
This is Pope Benedict.
Pope Benedict XV, that's right. And Pacelli was supposed to convey that idea to the emperor. And the emperor was opposed to it, but his chancellor, Hertling, was open to the idea, however, only if the Allies would agree that if Germany agrees to those two preconditions, the war would be over. What they did not want was to kind of set the stage for preconditions, and then the war would go on.
And the Allies also recognized his diplomatic skills?
The Allies were interested in the initiative, but they took the position, let's see what the Pope comes up with. They did not formally respond to it, and they did not want to respond until Germany had responded. Germany didn't want to respond until the Allies had responded.
Let's see who goes first.
That's right. and the Pope was caught in the middle with his initiative and actually was beaten up by both sides because the Germans accused him of being pro-Allies and the Allies accused him of helping the Germans out. And he got the worst. He got the worst of both sides. And this was important for later on because Pius XII did not try something like that. You know, he abstained from making concrete proposals how to end the war.
Well, having that as an experience certainly helps.
That's right. That's right. So after the war was over, it was not over only in Germany, it was over all over Europe, and the face of Europe has changed. Instead of Austria-Hungary and Germany and Russia, you had now Russia, White Russia, Ukraine, the Baltic states, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and several other countries. And in all those countries, there was a total absence of a formal relationship between the church and the state. And from an American point of view, that might not mean very much, because if you and I would like to start a new religious foundation, we just start one. If we have the money, we buy the land, and we probably get an exemption from the county, and that's it. But in Europe, it is not that easy. Unless you have permission by the state, you cannot do anything. Your schools are worthless because their degrees are not being accepted. You might not have a right to build a church, or you might not be able to use a church or a monastery. Priests and orders have been kicked out over the time for long, and in great numbers, for over 100 years before. So the Vatican has an interest of ensuring that the faithful can follow their faith, exercise it freely, and receive the sacraments. That is a bottom line.
I think as Americans, if memory serves, we didn't have a relationship with the Vatican until Ronald Reagan.
That's right.
Is that?
That's right, yeah.
So apparently, after the war, the priorities changed, of course. What affected those priorities? What were the new priorities? To establish church-state relationships with all these?
Yes, to ensure that the church can act in total freedom without interference from the state.
With all these newly independent states.
That's right, that's right. And Pacelli was asked to spearhead the activities both with the German-speaking states and with the Soviet Union.
Newly independent states means something different today.
That's right. But it's not unlike that. It's not unlike, you know. That's right. That's right. The Baltic states are free again. You know, Poland is free again. Hungary is free again, but in a different sense. He negotiated with Lenin's foreign minister for many years, but without success. Later on, Stalin's foreign minister. In the German area, he was able to conclude several so-called concordats, which on a state level secured the right for religious freedom and religious service.
Within the independent states that made up
Germany. He started with Bavaria because Bavaria was a Catholic state, and they were most willing to give in and to cooperate with the Catholic Church. And then he had a model for the other states. And look, the Bavarians did all that. So with Prussia, he was the last one. And that was the most difficult one because the Lutheran majority didn't want to hear about a concordat. And they had to even change the name. They called it an understanding, but it was the same. You know. He also initiated negotiations with Germany as a whole, the Weimar Republic, the democratic Germany of the time. And they had very concrete proposals what they wanted. They wanted freedom for German Catholic schools, and they wanted freedom from interference in the appointment of university professors who teach theology, and selection of bishops and priests, and freedom for the church to speak out on all issues which are necessary to speak out for.
That's it.